Hey guys, it's FFXIV here, and today we're doing something just a little bit different. I wanted to talk about my first thoughts and impressions on the lore they dropped on us in last night's Fanfest Keynote. Now, we got a lot of new information about the game and about Endwalker from the keynote, and there's a lot of cool lore stuff, so I just wanted to give my first thoughts and impressions, give a quick rundown. This is not going to be anything extensive. There's a lot of information we don't know, so I'm going to try to keep this as brief as possible, but I just wanted to get this out there and do a quick little fun video. Also, you might have noticed that in the background that is not in fact footage from the FanFest, but it is in fact a time-lapse of me drawing my first Twitch emote. I did, in fact, make affiliate, so thank you guys so much for that. If you want to catch one of my art streams, or one of my Final Fantasy XIV streams, or one of my streams in general, I do stream over on Twitch on Tuesdays and Saturdays at 9 PM EST. I also sometimes stream on Thursdays, but it's been a while since I've been able to stream on Thursdays, so you're mostly going to find me over there on Tuesdays and Saturdays at 9 PM EST at the FFXIV. Link is in the description below. With that out of the way, let's begin. Obviously, the first interesting thing that they showed off is the Reaper job. It is a new melee job. It uses a scythe. A lot of people already predicted the new job would use a scythe. A lot of people already called that Xenos would be an edgy boy and also use a scythe, which is exactly what happened. Now, there's some interesting lore to talk about here in regards to the way the job works, because you do channel power from the void, and in fact, that little minion you summon, or whatever you want to call it, is in fact supposed to be some sort of void scent, as far as I understand. I might be getting that a little bit wrong. But you definitely are channeling power from the void, which is really interesting because while there have been jobs that are linked to the void in the past, like Black Mage is the first one that comes to mind, this is the first time we are actually allowed to do that, because if you remember, the whole thing back in Black Mage's questline is that channeling the power from the void is a bad thing, and they further explore that with the whole Weeping City of Monarch and the Void Arc and all the Void Mages and how much they completely mess things up. So I thought that was interesting that now we're getting a job where, oh no, yeah, you can channel power from the void. Beyond that, though, we don't really have any information in regards to the lore of the job. The next thing I wanted to mention is the dragon that Estinian was riding on. I saw a lot of people initially confuse that dragon for Tiamat. Now, they did go over this in the keynote, so I'm sure that most people have heard, but that is in fact not Tiamat. It doesn't look like Tiamat, but also it was using the cutscene graphics, which can make characters look drastically different, so I can understand the confusion. And in fact, that isn't Tiamat, but it is one of the first brood of Midgardsormr. I believe the name is Vyra. I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm assuming it's a V because they did say there was a mistranslation with the Japanese version, and one of the letters they don't have over there is V. So, but it was really hard to hear, and they didn't put the name up on screen like on text. It was just Koji Fox pronouncing it. So, that's my best guess. Pronunciation and name aside, I am really interested that we're getting to see more of Midgardsormr's first brood, and I'm really interested to see where that whole thing goes. The next thing they went over was the new areas, and unfortunately, there's not really much I can touch on here. There's just way too many unknowns. We don't know barely anything about any of the places they showed us. The one interesting thing that they brought up is that Thavnir is the Dancer job's origin city, so I guess that's cool, but once again, there really isn't anything I can go off of here in terms of lore. One of the cities that I can talk about that I know we're going to is Old Sharlayan, and when I saw Old Sharlayan, I freaked because Old Sharlayan has so much lore behind it. There is so much potential there. I am really excited about this. It's the home of the Sons of St. Quinnock, the students of Blethesian, the Circle of Knowing, all of the Archons at the very least studied there. It's the home of Louisoix Levier, and there's just so much potential lore and information from stuff that they've been dropping since literally 1.0 that there is no way this isn't going to be a huge lore bomb. In fact, we might be getting some information a little bit earlier than we think, because they did kind of tease that maybe we'd be getting some information about Old Sharlayan in 5.55. So I'm really excited about this. Another thing I'm really excited about is they almost nearly name-dropped a character. They dropped him in the trailer, and it's definitely him. It's Fortunal, names are hard. Fortunal Levier, which is obviously from the last name you can probably tell, Louisoix's eldest son and Alizain Alphinaud's father. So that's huge. Given what we see him doing, he's likely the speaker of the forum, which is a pretty big job. And I can't wait to see how his ideals of, you know, being standoffish, you know, upholding Sharlayan's kind of rule of non-intervention is going to clash with, obviously, Alizain Alphinaud's ideals of, we want to protect the realm. We already saw some of that with Y'shtola, so that's super hype. I'm really excited about all of that. Just the fact that we're going to Sharlayan is incredible and amazing, and I'm really excited. Also, this is less confirmed lore and more just my speculation, so this hasn't been confirmed at all. But I have a feeling that Sharlayan is going to have a heavy role in the Sage job. Now, I don't mean to say that I think that they're going to put Sage in Sharlayan, because they really don't like to lock jobs behind stories nowadays. They tried that in Heavensward, and it was a terrible idea, and I don't actually want them to. But I definitely have a feeling that Sage has very strong ties to Sharlayan, and that's probably where Alphinaud picks it up at the very least. Getting back to actual lore though, and this is something they didn't bring up in the keynote, but they brought it up in the FanFest event they held after that, which was How Do You Like Hydaelyn? Which was really cool, by the way. I like that little, like, tour style. That was basically exactly what I had in mind with my Tours of Eorzea videos. So I might just leave that to them, or I might actually try to do something like it. But they talked about something really cool in that the library we see our boy G'raha in the trailer actually looks a lot like the Great Gooble Library, and has a lot of those same cues. And in fact, they mentioned that the Great Gooble Library was basically a branch library to this main library. And just the amount of lore and information packed in that library, like, if I existed in the Final Fantasy XIV universe, I would live here. This would be my home. I could talk about Old Sharlayan, and I probably will in a future lore video, all day. But moving along from that, they also announced the new beast tribe, the Loporrits. Now, this is going to be complete speculation on my part once again, so we're once again moving out of confirmed lore territory. But I bet these guys are on the moon, because moon rabbits are a thing in Japanese mythology, and I feel like that's where they're going with this, especially since we know we're going to the moon. Also, they also announced the Magus Sisters, but I'm not going to talk about the Magus Sisters because I don't really know anything about Final Fantasy IV, and my speculation would probably be way off, so we're not touching that. Going back to us going to the moon, however, they did show us the Mare Lamatorium, and it looks very Amarician. It looks like Amarot, basically. And that's really interesting, because all the way back in Heavensward, Hydaelyn mentions casting off Zodiark from the star and banishing him, and it's implied that she's talking about the moon, or she straight up says moon, I can't quite remember, but I would really like that to be literal, like Hydaelyn literally took part of the corrupted planet and threw it to the side, and that city is literally a chunk of Amarot and not just, you know, built after the fact by the Unsundered, which is also a possibility, but is infinitely less cool, so I'm hoping it's the former, and that it's a literal translation of Hydaelyn literally casting off Zodiark from the start and fragmenting an Amarician city or something like that, and that being what we see on the moon. Outside of that, we did have a couple of other big announcements. For instance, male Vyra are now officially confirmed, and they showed them off. And they also confirmed female Hrothgar, although they did say that they were going to work on it in the future. So when those are coming, I don't know. But they did confirm male Vyra, and I kind of always knew they would. A lot of people were saying they probably wouldn't, but I always knew we just needed to be patient. The fact that they give us two quote-unquote half races, where you got one gender or the other, kind of really made it seem like they were planning this from the beginning. I know Yoshi P didn't say that. I know he did say that it was thanks to the development team, and he did basically go back on his word. But I always kind of figured that was more of a, like, literal, oh, I'm not going to ask you guys to make any new races, and then it's like, well, we're not really adding new races to the game, we're just making the 2 races we just added more complete by matching them to the other races by adding these 2 genders. Oh, also, I can't believe I was about to miss this, but they did also reveal the Alliance raid and kind of a little bit of what that would entail. Basically, all they said was it's going to involve the 12, which is really exciting because we don't have any lore about the 12, basically, except for the short descriptions that they give us in the lore books. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I'm also really looking forward to beating Ulthicc up and seeing if he deserves to remain as my patron deity or not. Outside of that, the last thing they talked about was that they're adding an Oceana data center, which I think is really cool. I'm really excited for people who live in that region and have been getting terrible ping and latency from being split between the North American and the Japanese data centers. So I'm super happy for you guys for that. You guys can now join me on my machinist bullshit now that you have low latency. But there really isn't any lore to talk about there, so yeah, that's a cool announcement, but I don't really have anything else to say. And that brings us to the end of the keynote. This was a little bit of a different video than what I typically do. Do let me know what you guys thought of it down in the description below. Do leave a like if you liked the video, and if you want more Final Fantasy XIV content from me, do be sure to hit that subscribe button. With that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.